finance.
Yeah, you will find your reading list here.
The money, the cost
Kuch
goes up
your life.
because the risk is too much. So either they will get it, but then not necessarily
Now I can't change anything. Yeah, really.
Costs, or they won't get it at all. And that
Why is
is
it in
a
full
big problem.
screen?
That is a big problem that exists today in India as well. But now, what is happening because of the COVID issues, you know probably that worldwide, particularly in the beginning of the COVID problems, 10,000, more than 10,000 aircraft were grounded, right? They were all grounded. India, everywhere, grounded. That was not good for the industry at large. It was not good for each of us individually, passengers. It was certainly not good for airlines, but it was not good for aircraft lessors or banking industry financing acquisitions of airplanes. It was not good for anybody. And now they say maybe, okay, should we privatize airlines, because in many countries airlines are obtaining money from the governments, otherwise they will go bankrupt. I don't know how the situation is in India, but I don't think it is like that. But until today, most airlines are privatized, and they need in the future after COVID certainly new private finance by banks or leased aircraft. It will go back. One more thing about this, by the way, the international aviation financing and lease industry goes in cycles. We have very bad times, but always come back. I can give you a few examples. September 11, 2001, yeah, you were either still babies or kids or not even born yet, but remember New York, what happened there, the attacks on the World Trade Center, and the industry, even in my circles, I was sitting next to people representing lawyers from Boeing, from a very, very big aircraft engine lessor, and other people at one table for lunch in South Africa during the realization of that KPOP Convention in Cape Town. And this was just 1 month later that the disaster attacks in New York. They were saying, this is the end of our world. This, I mean, the aviation world. This is, we will all go bankrupt. We will all go bankrupt. This is the end. That's what actually a guy said who was representing a major aircraft engine manufacturer. And everybody was thinking the same. However, that is my point. We came back. The industry came back, right? And then it went all right. Sky was the limit again until 2008. The worldwide economic recession started.
In the settings in OBS software, just check whether all the audios are like, all the audio things that we have corrected yesterday, like working or not, or you have video call me so that we can check it.
It recovered in 2010 until, yeah, the COVID started. The COVID issues started. But that is my point. So surely after this has been taken care of, whenever that may be. For example, I already did fly to Cairo last week. I had to be in Egypt last week, and I had to be in Egypt also in April and in December also last year. More and more passengers on board. Still not full aircraft, but surely there will be a time that things go better in the aviation finance and lease world. And in the aviation industry at large. Now, to give you an idea, rough prices, what does an aircraft cost? Now, the big ones, and these are indications, and of course, all depends on your credit and leverage, how much
Everything is fine from
aircraft you buy.
Audio to disabled.
Let's say an Airbus 380
export audio enable question
well, mostly in the desert part right now because of COVID. But also,
Everything is alright.
I think.
operated again.
The settings are alright, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Such a big aircraft may run up to 400 million.
Just checking.
I'm
calling you. Just checking.
That an engine, one engine alone, may cost run up to 30 million. So such a big Airbus 380 has 4 engines. So already the engines alone are $120 million together, the 4 of them. And I point this out because aircraft engines are, can we go back to the same, is this? Okay, this is the good one. These aircraft, this is fine, leave it here, please, thank you. Aircraft engines are leased, mostly are leased and financed separately. We will look into that problem later. But you see, they are leased and financed separately. That is why it is important to look into how much do they cost and what are the risks of financing, leasing in India and elsewhere, these costly engines. Okay, now here we go. I already told you different laws. Yeah, they make it difficult to finance these airplanes, or there are no laws applicable. And then engines, they are leased and financed separately, and they are costly. And now a problem we'll address later. But there are court cases, also court cases like this one mentioned here, English Blue Sky case, which are totally a mess, a total mess. And that is due to the fact that the English court was advised wrongfully by the English and lawyers involved in this case, because that is another matter. People, lawyers who are taking care of their clients and obviously are aircraft finance and lease lawyers, specialized expertise, but they have no clue what they are doing. They don't know what they do. They may be partners of the largest law firms in the world, international law firms, which may be very good at, let's say, corporate law or banking law in general, but in regard to international aviation finance and lease transactions, they have no clue. They basically do not know what they are doing. And how is that possible? This is possible because they were not ever taught to do this in their school of law. Nobody ever at that time addressed international aviation financing and leasing transactions. And secondly, their bosses, their senior lawyers, were not either. So they couldn't instruct the juniors what to do. And that is a major, major problem. Because of that, they cannot advise a court in England, for example, how English law or international law is. They don't. And for that very reason, like in this case, English what the English cannot advise the board in England, for example, how to go international law creditors, bank, lost more than every $1 billion because of those errors. A member of the American Bar Association, because I lived in California 6 years practice and studied law. I can remember one of the occasions of the American Bar Association meetings, and particularly the Aircraft Finance Committee. I remember distinctly where was it? In Atlanta, Georgia. There I met an English solicitor, an English lawyer of my age. You talk to each other and you say, "Hi guy, how are you doing? What are you doing?" So I said, "Oh, I'm," and he said, I am the head of the Aviation Finance and Leasing team of basically the largest one today, largest law firms doing this, aircraft financing, leasing." And he said to me, "You know, I never attended law school, never. But he said, I'm going to retire next year, and then I'm going to study law, and then I'm going to history as well, to study history." Now, can you believe this? Can you believe this? And that's the way it is until today. For example, financing, leasing aircraft, is it complementary? Now, listen, instead, one of them says, any lawyer in aircraft finance transactions can tell you juicy stories of security rights, let's say mortgages in aircraft, right, which are doomed, which is true. the Blue Sky case is an example. I just mentioned it. We'll look into that more detailed later. Judgments which are unenforceable. You have a court ruling, but you cannot do anything with it. The court says something in India. Two court cases in a certain matter. Two court cases, 2013. The court says this, but until today, the stakeholder, what can I do? Until today, it is enforceable because the Indian authorities refuse to cooperate. They don't do what they are supposed to do. Now, this contract may be used. But I can tell you that the contracts are more lawyers, and they create these hundreds and hundreds of pages contracts, and you pay through the nose, but they are useless. You might as well throw them in the bin immediately. And that's the way it is. Now, scenarios describe a lawyer's paradise, which is, as we all know, synonymous to a client's depression. Now, isn't that £1,000 an hour? I have no idea how much that is in local currency is India, but it is already a lot in Europe. It's nothing, you see. It is a lot of money, and we have got a lot to do, which is nice, but the clients, yeah, it is the client's depression, right? They don't like it, and especially the lawyers involved are not qualified really, and they make a mess of it. This is true. Now, is this reality? Yeah, it is reality until today. So I can tell you that there is still a lot to be done, and for lawyers, yes, this is not a bad field to work in. I can tell you that already. Next slide, please. So an eye-opener maybe, if you originally intended to do criminal law, for example, with all respect to criminal law, but in my country, criminal law lawyers in general do not make a fortune, unless of course they are representing all the cocaine dealers and other, you know what I'm talking about, the big crimes, but in general, criminal lawyers are not making a fortune. So if you maybe think, okay, I'm changing my view and I want to make some money in the future, remind what I said. Okay, what about the engines? I already told you, look at this. Look at that beautiful engine, which is costly, right? You will agree. They are repairing it, but it is attached to that frame, right? You can see how little the guys are, but it is costly. Let's say 30 million. Can we go to the next slide, please? Beautiful engine. What is the problem? There's a major issue here. The issue is aircraft engines financing and leasing, and due to the doctrine of accession. What does that mean? It means a legal theory that says as soon as you, and it applies allegedly, but it creates a lot of trouble in the aircraft finance world. It says, as soon as you attach this engine or another one to an airframe, then the ownership of that engine that shifts to the owner of the airframe. And the owner of the airframe may be a different one than the owner of the engine. So the engine owner, lessor, aircraft engine lessor, is not pleased because it loses $30 million. Would you be pleased? No, you would not be amused either if that would happen. You can imagine. Now, who is therefore the owner of the engine? Is it the owner of the airframe? And the same goes for the financier. So let's say a financier has a mortgage, a pledge, or security interest, whatever form in India, in that engine. Now also that financier is losing its interest, its secured right, it is gone. Because now the owner of the airframe is the owner of the engine, and simultaneously the bank having an interest in that, having a mortgage in that airframe, aircraft, is now also having it extended to the engine. So they are pleased. The owner of the aircraft is pleased, the owner of the mortgagee, the bank financing the aircraft, yeah, they are pleased, but the other ones are not pleased. You can imagine that this is a great risk. Now, some lawyers, and particularly in my country, the Netherlands, in the European part of the Netherlands, by the way, has more jurisdictions, old colonial issues like the United Kingdom, Great Britain, etc., etc., and Denmark, but also other countries, Greece, court cases, many court cases, totally messed up in Denmark, a great shame. Why again about aircraft engines in a bankruptcy case in 2014-15 involving international stakeholders, so not only Danish, and it was disastrous for the aircraft engine lessors financiers. Why? Why? Again, due to misrepresentation of Danish lawyers. Very bad, very bad, very bad. Now, devastating worldwide impact on the global aircraft finance lease industry. So this doctrine should not be applied. However, unfortunately, until today, it pops up all the time, and again, also in Indian transactions, pops up. Next slide, please. Okay, we are going to talk about this more detailed, and considering the time element, I suggest that this blue sky case is extremely important. It is an English case, but it was disastrous, and keep in mind that English documents, lease agreements and mortgage agreements, they choose English law, so there will be possibly English mortgages created in Indian operated aircraft. Keep that in mind, please. Can we go to the next slide, or is this the last one? Kingfisher. Now, I'm sure most of you, if not all, heard about Kingfisher. Can we go to the next slide, please? Kingfisher collapsed. You know that it went bankrupt in 2013, insolvent. It was an Indian carrier, private. Okay. Now, what happened is, in that case, it was terrible for everybody in India, but also outside India, the stakeholders. Now, this bankruptcy included two airplanes operated by Kingfisher. But considering India's reputation in the international aviation and finance lease world, which is not that grand, the stakeholder, the aircraft lessor, and the aircraft financier, the bank, they decided to repossess, to get back, to attach, to arrest these two airplanes outside India. And by the way, I am not here intending to say that India is bad, worse. I'm not bashing India. I am focusing on India for you. And unfortunately, there are several cases like this one in India which made the industry at large consider, India, oh dear, it is not that grand. Am I going to do business there or not? Like the bank here was of course not clean, and for that very reason it repossessed 2 Kingfisher airplanes in Istanbul in Turkey. It put it on a chain there, right? But it had to go, that's what it did. It went to court in India to get those 2 airplanes deregistered from the National Aircraft Registry of India, the DGCA, the abbreviation Directorate General Civil Aviation of India. Now, and of course, it didn't want to do so, but it had to do so. It took them time to get those aircraft deregistered from India. Because as long as it is registered in India, an aircraft, you cannot, even if it is already outside India, you cannot lease it to another lessee operator in another country. You cannot do that. It's impossible. You'll see that later. But you can't do that. So your airplane is worthless, literally worthless. And that same happens in other countries, as you can see. It happened in the past in Spain. Spain is notorious, bureaucratic. Egypt, myself, I had a case in Egypt. Thailand, I had a case. Nigeria, Brazil, other countries where I have cases like Venezuela. It happens there. You understand? And that is not good for the reputation of that country. But I must confess that Kingfisher India case was pre-Cape Town. So India had not yet adopted the Cape Town Convention. However, I can also say you that will address tomorrow. There is a case, Indian case, called corporate aircraft funding, a private aircraft, not a commercial airline aircraft, private aircraft that has been taken out of India in 2010, and it is still grounded in the area of London until today. So it's 11 years later, because DGCA, DCA for short, India until today, unless it changed its mind yesterday or today or very recent, not even last week, it is still refusing to deregister that aircraft, which is already 11 years in England, and for very invalid reasons, because that is a Cape Town Convention case. Alright, next page please. Can we go to the next slide? Conclusion. Blue Sky, Kingfisher, corporate aircraft funding, they confirm problems, right? Your rights cannot be enforced. Even if allegedly sophisticated courts and local updated modern aviation law applies, like in the case I mentioned, Blue Sky, because allegedly English law is so sophisticated. Well, you can see it is not that sophisticated at all. Repossessing aircraft difficult. Legal uncertainty creates economic risk. and that creates in turn unnecessary high costs. And for that very reason, operators of aircraft in India, Indian Airlines, one of the reasons why you as passengers have to pay unnecessary high costs for tickets is because of this. Because at the end of the day, who has to pay for all this? Who has to pay? That is you and I as passengers, that is you and I as consumers. The ticket prices go up, and there is no need for that, really, but that's the way it is. We pay the price. So that's the last page, right? Can we then go to the new slides, please? That is, the Cape Town Convention is intending to facilitate this. Okay, there are more slides. Is intending to facilitate this, and it is. But however, I can already tell you, if like in India, Cape Town Convention applies, and the authorities in India, including Department of Civil Aviation, is not doing its homework, yeah, then it still doesn't work, right? Can we go to the next slide? Yeah, that's what I said. So, no convention is perfect. No convention covers all the problems that exist. And keep in mind, Cape Town Convention is not applied properly in contracting states like India. But another thing is that it does not cover everything. It doesn't cover like issues which I didn't even address yet, like corruption, fraudulent cases, that kind of stuff. That is not covered by Cape Town. You have other treaties for that. And another thing is that unfortunately, and I'm certainly not finger pointing at India, including in my country, corruption exists. It does exist. In my country it also existed. It is maybe the country, but almost at the highest level, corruption occurred. I'll tell you how it was. The previous queen mother of the queen mother of the current king of the Kingdom of the Netherlands, she was married to a guy, and he was corrupt as can be, as it turned out to be, because he obtained a couple of $1 million, that was in the 1950s, from United States manufacturer of airplanes, to stick to the aviation industry. That those were not private, what do you call it, commercial aircraft, but they were operated by the army, the army aircraft. Nevertheless, we got a couple of million. So, and the worst case, I think, current case, is that I'm not sure whether you have heard of this, but the king, the former king of Spain, who abdicated and his son is now king, his father, the former king of Spain, apparently was also corrupt as can be, and he had to go into exile, and he is living now. He also got money, you understand, and he is living now. He's living now somewhere in the Middle East, in the Middle East. Not finger pointing at any country in South America, Europe, Asia. It happens in the highest circles of society. Thank you. Can we go to the, how much time have we got left? What time did we start? A bit more time. Can we go to the overview, please, of the treaties? That is called lecture number 2, and it is overview of treaties. Now, what I want to point out, the Cape Town Convention, which is not the only treaty that exists and that intends to cover certain aspects of international aircraft finance and leasing transactions. It is not. So, for that very reason, you shouldn't forget those other treaties which may apply. Can you find it? Already, let me start with that. Already in 1903, which is quite a while ago, even I didn't live yet. It is quite a while ago, but already the issues which I am trying to address today, they already started to begin. They did arise in practice. Now you can imagine that in 1931 you had very little aircraft, small aircraft. Nevertheless, here we go. Overview various treaties. Now look at it. The CITESA, which is an abbreviation of French, but I won't mention it. It is too difficult for most of us. So they came up with drafts that created specifically for the aircraft finance world. At that time, leasing was hardly done. Aircraft leasing was not done at all, in fact. But they came up how to protect the rights of financiers that finance aircraft. And specifically, what was an issue at that time was the engines. Already at that time, aircraft engines were taken off aircraft often, right? Not as often as today, but it did happen. And then maybe you replace it by temporarily by another engine which you may have leased for some time. You understand? So already in 1931 they tried to facilitate international aspects of aircraft financing. They wanted to create a treaty in the member states of CITESA. And CITESA was mostly a European organization, but don't forget that in 1931 many countries in Europe, including Great Britain and the Kingdom of the Netherlands, for example, but also France or Portugal or whatever, Spain, they had many colonies in those days, right? So, like India was not independent yet. So it was falling under Great Britain. You know that better than I do. A similar situation in the Kingdom of the Netherlands or Belgium, wherever. Now, but those drafts for convention were not realized because World War II broke out, 1950. In fact, the people involved creating those drafts, they had to, all of a sudden, 1939, there was a meeting in, I think, in Paris, and then 1939, the Germans were occupying Poland, and World War II was almost, that kind of stuff. Everybody had to run back home, so they were not realized. Nevertheless, it is incredible that already in 1939 they intended to solve problems we are going to address today and tomorrow. And we had to wait until 2001, Cape Town, that Cape Town was realized, the Cape Town Convention. It took so long. That is incredible. Another convention, the Rome Convention. What is that? What is the Rome Convention? The Rome Convention intends to make it difficult that you arrest aircraft. Commercial aircraft, not corporate aircraft. In those days there were hardly any corporate aircraft, if at all. Now, commercial aircraft. Why? Because at that time there were not many flights, right? there were not many flights, let's say, between Delhi and, yeah, I don't know, London, if at all, I don't know. It took ages to get, if at all, from one place to another. But you know what I mean. Let's say between Amsterdam and London, today there are 20 flights a day at least, but international, there were not many. So it didn't want anybody, just anybody, to arrest an aircraft, because then people couldn't fly anymore, you see. So the main intention of this treaty was to make it very difficult to arrest, to ground commercially operated aircraft. This treaty was signed by India, but not ratified. It did not ratify it. Ultimately, therefore, it does not apply in India. Now, yeah, you can say, so what? And yeah, at that time, again, the British rule, Britain didn't adopt it either. So that was probably the reason why India didn't, and not later on either. But I can tell you one case that is a recent one that has to do with Jet Airways. You know Jet Airways better than I do, and you also know that Jet Airways was almost bankrupt. It was in a reorganization for 2 years. Now, thank goodness for everybody, hopefully it is back and it will start flying again. But I'll tell you one thing, one case, one of the Jet Airways airplanes, a Boeing 777, wide body, costly, very expensive, you can imagine, that was leased and financed by Jet Airways. It was leased from a lessor and it was financed again by a bank, etc., etc. Okay, now Jet Airways had a major hub in Amsterdam where I am located. Why? Because Jet Airways was flying, I think, 3-4 times a day to Amsterdam, and from Amsterdam it continued to New York and other cities in North America, including Canada. Right? So it has a major hub here. Alright. Now, one day, Jet got trouble. A court declared bankruptcy reward. No. Before that, what happened in India? Before that, what happened is, two creditors, not even Dutch, but one from Luxembourg and Belgium, they arrested that certain 777 airplane in that Amsterdam airport. They arrested it because they were owed a couple of $1 million, and they said enough is enough. So it was not even the lessor, it was not even the bank in New York. No. And two unprotected, unsecured creditors who had done services for a jet, they arrested that airplane and its logbook. So, what am I trying to say? That airplane, by the way, is probably still, I'm not sure today, and also because I got lost, my interest is not there anymore, but it was grounded for, let's say, 2 years, possibly until today, at Amsterdam Airport. In the event, that is my point, that India had not only signed but ratified this treaty, that would have been impossible. They could not have those creditors would not have been able to arrest this plane. So it may be outdated, old to a certain extent, but still has functions. This airplane could have not have been arrested, or the arrest would have been lifted immediately. By the way, Jet Airways until today is bankrupt in the Netherlands, in the European Netherlands, where I'm where I'm located, what happened is before the Indian authorities declared the bankruptcy or the insolvency reorganization, because JET is not formally bankrupt yet in India, before that happened, here the creditors asked locally for Jet Airways bankruptcy in Amsterdam, and it was declared bankrupt because Jet, nor the financier, nor the lessor objected. They didn't object that the bankruptcy could be declared because nobody objected, and that was required. Jet had this major hub here. It had a legal representation, official representation in the Netherlands. It was a company, a subsidiary of Jet in India, official company in the Netherlands with staff and everything. And normally airlines don't do that outside the country where they are located. They use agents. But because of that, until today, the bankruptcy of Jet Airways in the Netherlands is not lifted. And even if the Jet procedure will be lifted in India tomorrow, this one is still pending. So what will the effects be if they start flying again outside India to Europe, for example? There's still a bankruptcy here, and Europe has a uniform insolvency law. What will happen? Now, you may wonder, write a thesis about it or something like that. Now, then there is the Chicago Convention. Chicago Convention has been adopted by almost all countries in the world. I say almost because I'm not sure about, for example, without finger pointing or whatever, Northern Korea, I don't know, countries. But okay, and that plays a role, as we see later, in regard to aircraft financing and leasing. Now, the Geneva Convention has not been adopted by India. It was realized in 1948, but Cape Town doesn't apply in everywhere, as I said, not in every aspect of aircraft financing and leasing transactions, so it still plays a role, and Indian parties may be confronted by Geneva Convention. Finally, for today, the Cape Town Convention, which has been adopted by India in 2008. However, the Indian authorities until today are not implementing it, which seems locally to be a requirement that treaties must be implemented locally before they are formally working. That may be true in India, I can already tell you, but of course the rest of the world has got nothing to do with it. So in the other 79 states and the European Union, whatever the problem is in India locally, that they don't care about, or they shouldn't care about, because that is an internal affair. The Cape Town Convention applies directly, for example, in my country. We have to do nothing to have that Cape Town Convention applicable, or any other similar or other treaties, if they have a executionary function, which means that countries have to do nothing, then we don't do anything. We don't need to work extra. Why would we? It is already working, because the Constitution says treaties have priority over local laws, and if local laws infringe treaties, they will not be applied. And this treaty is self-applicable, so we do nothing because it applies by itself. However, internally, unfortunately, your Constitution seems to say something different, and that is now a major issue because the governmental entities are not doing their homework. They adopted this treaty in 2008 already. It's 2021 now. They still are not doing their homework. And sorry again, without bashing India, finger pointing, my point is, why does India not do its homework before it ratifies a treaty? Why does it not already start the engines that are needed before ratification, that it knows it will happen soon after, and not 21 years later, not yet? Then don't ratify that treaty. It doesn't make any sense. It just creates confusion, which is not good for the world and for business, and certainly not in this matter. Adopting Cape Town, not implementing it, not applying it, yeah, that is not good for your reputation, and for that reason, it's only making it difficult. They don't get good leases, Indian operators, commercial ones or private ones, and the consumer has to pay extra for tickets, etc., etc. Now, I am not sure the time that I spent. I think this should be it for today. I'm not sure about the organizers. Maybe you can instruct. Are there any questions? I would love to hear them if they are there. And don't hesitate, please, today or tomorrow to ask questions. Legal practice, the legal industry is not a place to be shy. If you are shy and remain shy, reluctant to ask questions, reluctant to interfere, then you should maybe find another job. I don't say you should have a big mouth all the time, but asking questions and arguing, that is what we are supposed to do. And one of my old professors, when I was a student, he said, I'll never forget, about this kind of thing, because you don't have to be polite all the time, diplomatic, that's another industry, diplomacy. He said to me, to students, not to me, because we got along very well, but he wrote down also, let us not be unnecessarily friendly to each other. So interfere, ask questions, that is appreciated, welcome, and no issue, or it shouldn't be an issue in the law at all. Now, are there any questions, or organization, what are we going to do now? What?
Yeah. Yes, Vivisha, please, can you take over?
Yeah, I was asking, I request all of the participants to drop your questions in the chat box if you have any.
Are there any questions? Are there any questions?
If you want, you can directly unmute and ask, sir, if you have any questions to ask.
Yeah, this is Rahul. A very good evening from where I am to you, sir. I hope I'm audible to you.
I can hear you. Can the others log out then I can hear you better, because there's a bit of a resonance. If there are more than you and I talking, right? So, okay, go ahead, please.
Yeah, once again, sir, very good evening from where I am. With the question which I have is, I see that you are a professor at University of Mississippi, and I do have a couple of friends studying over there as well. I have been looking forward to get into the LLM course that you're providing. Just for the records, I'm already a BCom LLB student, a 5-year integrated course, pursuing the 4th year. So my question which I have for you, sir, right now is, for a person who has been doing law from India, and we know the American Constitution and the Indian Constitution are miles different. We do have a lot of significant differences. Now, when a student from India comes on to study a course which is as specific as the aviation law, how difficult would it be for a person having no background at all in the American laws and regulations to blend in with the society and maybe end up, earning in the United States of America? What's your take on that, sir?
You see, as far as I know, the organizers of these lectures are specifically going to address that. A talk, a chat with a little panel, 2 Indian or I'm not sure, 1 or 2 practicing lawyers doing aviation. One has studied, previously my student, graduated. He is practicing law, aviation law in India now. Has an LLM degree. What else do you want? And we are going to talk about, indeed, addressing the point you're raising. What can you do and how does it work? Do you get a job and in US or wherever? So I think that is what we can then, unless you have a specific question specifically that you want to know now.
Yes, sir. That my question was specifically addressed towards the difference in the curriculum that we might be having compared to that.
The curriculum. Yeah, you see, that is the curriculum. That's another thing. I'll tell you. I studied myself, as I said, in the United States. The issue is in the United States or in other countries. There is different law applicable within the United States. I mean, there is federal law and there is state law. So every university is focusing on federal law, okay, but that is mostly constitutional. And if you're interested in constitutional law, okay, that's one thing. However, if you're interested indeed in aviation, and then particularly in aircraft financing law, I can tell you, yeah, every state has different laws which apply to aircraft finance and lease transactions. You see, so there is no uniformity between states. So which law school do you want to go? What are they going to teach you? There'll be, yeah, federal law, but that is usually constitutional law, including human rights and those kind of things. Federal law, by the way, in the US is bankruptcy law, so that is important in regard to aircraft financing, leasing. Yes, that is federal law, but the rest depends. The curriculum is different from university to university, focusing on different areas of law. You see, I don't know exactly what you're looking for, even in regard to aircraft finance. What one wants is you want to apply New York law and not the law of, for example, of California in that respect. But it doesn't make sense to go and study in a law school that is focusing on New York law altogether. So that's very difficult to say. So is there even more something I can add to this? There is no answer. The curriculum is different from law school to law school. But you need to be careful about if they are accredited and real universities. That's if you want to do an LLM, even in Europe, what happened lately is that some institutions, calling them universities, offer, for example, an LLM, and one is in France, in Toulouse specifically, and they say not air and space law, save only aviation focus, LLM aviation law. But as far as I've been told, and I don't know because I don't care really, I'm not a student, but as far, you better be careful that such schools may not be the traditional law schools. The traditional law schools, right? So if you will that diploma help you, if you get such a diploma, and tuition is a lot of money, can you use it, for example, in India? Will it be recognized as a law school diploma?
Yes, sir. Your answer was specific, exactly what my question was intended for. Really happy for your answer. Really happy that I got to learn from you, sir. The session has been wonderful. Thank you for organizing this as well. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Anybody else? No questions? All right. You can always write me. You have seen and get, or hopefully, my contact details. All right?
Yes, sir. If anyone else is having any other queries, any other doubt related to this session or regarding anything as per the law is concerned, you can unmute and ask. Sir, we'll be waiting for another 2 minutes. If there is no question, then we'll be moving forward to the thank you note for today's session.
Yes, I hope answering the first question is that I was clear now, because it was rather broadly formulated. And if nobody else has a question, can you then maybe, if it is not clear what I said or not answering the point which you wanted to know, that you explain to me in one sentence exactly what is your question, in six words. Because I'm not sure whether I was... if there is still time to do so, and indeed.
Sir, if you want to add something to your lecture, you can do so. We have the timing. We don't have an issue with the time.
No, right now, as far as I'm concerned, I leave it up to that student or whoever he was, if he has to add something or ask something more in regard to his question. No?
Yes, sir. I do have a slight more clarification that I would like. However, I think...
Okay. Ask the question. Yeah.
Yes, sir. However, the problem over here is that will go entirely into the curriculum and not the law. Because into the curriculum, the syllabus that will be, the portions that we'll be looking for in the course of air and space law. So I don't think that will be relevant to this particular lecture.
Do you want to obtain such a thing? Do you want to obtain a syllabus?
Sir, I look forward to pursue a course called LLM in Air and Space Law with Mississippi University of Mississippi.
Okay. But all right, you don't. If that's it, I didn't understand that. All right. Now, if you want to have a syllabus of the course Air and Space Law of the University of Mississippi, because others, as I said, institutions, to be very precise, Leiden and McGill, they don't offer this kind of extensive course, but I'll be delighted to give you, if you give me your email address, to send you and anybody else the syllabus. Is that a direct answer?
Yes, sir, that is exactly the question. I got clarified on that. Thank you, sir.
Oh, okay. All right. As I said, always answer and keep answering. Always ask. Never be shy. Very good. Excellent example. All right, I'll do that. Get in touch with me, or with organizations. Sorry, of course, with Amicus Curiae, and they. I'll be delighted to give you the syllabus. It may be last year, because I didn't update it yet, because we are starting August, as I said, 23rd. But I'm sure the 2020 syllabus will do. All right. Now, heard so far, we talking about? Is it easy? You think, oh yeah, piece of cake? Anyway. All right, do you want to round it off, organizers?
Yes, sir. If there is no other question to the from participants, we can we'd request VG sir to kindly take over now for the thank you.
Yes, sir. So here we are with the end of today's session. Tomorrow we will be having another session on the same topic. I would like to continue with the vote of thanks. I, on behalf of the Amicus Curiae family, would like to thank our honorable guest, Professor Patrick Onabio, sir, for gracing so many important topics and sharing our findings and opinions today. We are very fortunate to have you with us. I would also like to thank the entire organization for organizing such a fruitful event. With this, I would like to end the vote of thanks. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for organizing it. Again, thank you. I really, really appreciate that you have invited me. And I can say it one more time, and not enough. What you are doing as an organization, in not one country in the world, I have seen anything like what you're doing, honestly. And on top of it all, India is a huge country, so many students, and I'm sure a lot to organize, and all kind of areas of law. I think you're doing a fantastic, honestly, a fantastic job. I think you should get some kind of a lifetime award. Really.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your kind words.
I think it's open now.
Okay, see you tomorrow now.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for the great session.
Bye-bye.